You try to say no, and somehow the conversation ends with you apologizing. That's not an accident, so how do you actually protect yourself when someone refuses to respect your limits?
How can you set boundaries with a narcissist?
Okay, so, before anything else, can we just be honest about what we're actually dealing with here? Because this isn't a normal disagreement where you just say your piece and the other person goes, "Oh right, fair enough." That's not that's not how this goes. So, I don't know, stop thinking of it like a debate you can win and start thinking of it like risk management. What are the actual danger zones? Blow-ups? Guilt trips? Them telling everyone you're the problem? Financial stuff? Figure out what's most likely to blow up and plan around that first. And keep your boundaries simple, yeah? The more you explain, the more ammunition you're handing over. Fewer words, more distance if you need it. And if you genuinely feel unsafe, please, I'm begging you, don't worry about being fair. Get support, document what's happening, and know your way out. That's not dramatic. That's just smart.
How can you set boundaries with a narcissist?
Yes, well, the fundamental error most people make is assuming that a boundary is a kind of emotional appeal, a request for the other person to feel differently. It is not. A boundary, properly constructed, is a statement of what you will do, not what they must feel or agree with. So, rather than lengthy justifications, which frankly only invite counter-argument, you want short, repeatable responses. You say the same thing, you disengage, you end the call, you leave the room. Consistent, predictable, boring. And here's the rather crucial part. You plan your responses before the confrontation occurs, not during it, because during it, your reasoning is compromised by stress. And if every boundary becomes a prolonged argument, well, that pattern itself is data. It suggests the boundary needs to become more structural, more unavoidable. Put simply, a boundary only works if the consequence is real and reliable.
The problem with chaos is that it expands to fill whatever space you leave for it. So you do not leave space for it. You build a container. Specific communication windows, written channels where possible, clear rules about visit times, and which topics are on the table. These are not suggestions. They are the structure. Do not negotiate when emotions are running high. That is not the time for decisions. You handle that when things are calm and you have already decided the rules in advance. When the rules are broken, the consequence is automatic. If there is yelling, the conversation ends. Not after one more exchange, not after a warning. It ends. The consequence does not need to be dramatic. It needs to be consistent. That is what makes it effective. The other person may not become predictable. That is outside your control. But your own life can still have structure, and that structure is yours to maintain.
How can you set boundaries with a narcissist?
Oh, sweetheart, can we just talk about the guilt for a second? Because that's the part nobody warns you about. It's not just that setting a boundary is hard, it's that it feels cruel. It feels like you're choosing yourself over someone you love, and we've been taught our whole lives that doing that makes you selfish or ungrateful or disloyal. But here's what I want us to sit with. Whose approval are we actually chasing, and what is it costing us? Because if the price of keeping the peace is your own peace, that's not connection, dear, that's erosion. Surround yourself with people who know your story, people who won't let you doubt your own experience. And please, let yourself understand this: loving someone and limiting your contact with them are not opposites. We can hold care for someone in our hearts and still protect ourselves from how they treat us. Both of those things can be true at the same time.
Hey friend, I just want you to know that your life genuinely can get calmer, even if that other person never changes, not even a little. Because here's the beautiful thing, you don't need them to change. You need you to change what you accept, what you respond to, what you let into your energy. Focus on what's actually yours to hold, your responses, your standards, how you take care of yourself after a hard interaction. And please celebrate the small things. One boundary you actually held. One argument you chose not to walk into. One honest, quiet no. Those aren't small, friend. They're you rebuilding trust in yourself, and that is everything. Hope here isn't about believing the other person will suddenly become kind. It's about believing, slowly and genuinely, that you can find your footing again. That is a kind of hope the universe always seems to honor, in my experience.
How can you set boundaries with a narcissist?
My child, a boundary is not a wall built to punish someone. It is a shoreline. It says, this is where the land ends, and this is where I begin. The clearest limits are not the loudest ones. They are the ones held quietly and consistently, where there is no gap for guilt to slip through, No open door for endless renegotiation. Expect to be tested. That is not a sign that you have done something wrong. It is simply what happens when someone discovers that the old patterns no longer work. Keep people close who know your truth, because isolation has a way of making you forget what you actually experienced. And remember, the point was never to win. It was never to make them understand. The point is to tend to your own ground, to keep your dignity whole, and to decide, with clear eyes, what level of closeness this person has earned. A tree does not argue with the wind about where its roots go.
If you made it this far, you're gonna want to see what comes next. Hit subscribe so you don't miss our next video, and click the video on screen now to keep learning more. See you in the next video.